all these beings, how many of these beings in the 5 years that I get, how many of them have ever heard of the Force? Well, like nobody. How many have ever seen a lightsaber? Nobody. How many have heard of these 4 people you keep making the movies about? Nobody. So I was like, okay, well, that's a pretty wide field. And that's the Star Wars reality.
Right.
You know? And so if you made a show about the United Kingdom and you only saw The Crown,
Sure.
you'd be like, whoa, I don't know. I don't know how that's enough, right?
Prepare your ears, humans. Happy, Sad, Confused begins now.
Hey guys, it's Josh, and welcome to another edition of Happy, Sad, Confused. This one's for the Star Wars fans, or just generally fans of great television and storytelling. Tony Gilroy is my guest on the pod today. It's a fantastic chat, if I do say so myself. All credit to Tony. Before we get to Mr. Gilroy, some news and announcements, updates. We still have 2 really cool events coming up on the calendar I wanted to mention really quickly for New York fans and LA fans, one for each of you. In New York, 28 years later, one of my most anticipated of the year, we are gathering together Danny Boyle, Aaron Taylor Johnson, and Jodie Comer at the 92nd Street Y for a big chat. Evening of June 1st, we're going to be showing clips from the film. This is an early sneak peek at one of the most anticipated films of the year for anybody with good taste, frankly. How great is 28 years later, and how excited are we all for this sequel? I'm stoked for this one. Then Los Angeles, June 3rd. I've been touting it. I'm going to continue to tout it until it happens. I'm sorry, but I'm never going to apologize for having an event with Gary Oldman and being excited about it. I'm excited. Gary Oldman, the living legend. We're talking slow horses, but we're really also going to have a great career chat. True romance, Bram Stoker's Dracula, 1,000 roles, Harry Potter, Batman. We're going to cover as much territory as possible. He's one of the greats of all time, truly. June 3rd in Los Angeles at the Fine Arts Theater. Information on how to get your tickets is in the show notes. Our Tier 1 tickets are sold out, but there are still plenty of seats left. It is a relatively small theater. It's going to be an intimate, fun, special evening with one of the all-time greats, Gary Oldman. So get your tickets now, spread the good word, come on out and say hello. As always, all the announcements, the early access, all the cool stuff is on our Patreon, patreon.com/happysadconfused. Supporting us over there lets us make more stuff over here. So check it out, see if something makes sense for you, and you have my eternal thanks. Okay, today's episode, ANDOR. ANDOR is one of the great shows I've seen in recent years, full stop. Whether it's Star Wars or not, whether you love Jedi or Skywalkers or whatever, this is just a great show. And it's no surprise because it comes from Tony Gilroy, who is one of the most consistently smart writers and filmmakers out there. He is, of course, known for his work on the Bourne movies, Michael Clayton. This guy is a consummate storyteller, and to see what he's brought to the Star Wars universe, first through Rogue One, which he helped kind of triage and help out, and now with his baby, ANDOR, which just concluded its 2nd season. This is a conversation that we taped at 92nd Street Y just a day after the 2nd season concluded. There's some spoilery stuff that we allude to here and there, so best to have seen the entire 2nd season prior to watching or listening to this chat. I would recommend consuming it that way. But this is one of those great chats with like a really smart storyteller. So if you're a writer, an actor, a filmmaker, or just a fan, I think you're gonna get a lot out of hearing Tony speak. He's just whip smart and really unusual. His vibe, you'll see, very matter of fact. Doesn't take it all too, I mean, takes it very seriously, doesn't maybe take himself too seriously, and just, I really dug getting to know him, never had chatted with him before. So I think you guys are going to dig this one, whether you're a Star Wars fan or not. Please enjoy my conversation with the great Tony Gilroy. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here tonight, guys. Obviously not a lot of New York Knicks fans in the house tonight. Thank you for prioritizing Star Wars over the Knicks. My name is Josh Horowitz. This is a live taping of my podcast, Happy, Sad, Confused, and I'm so thrilled. Sometimes the timing just lines up. It's the right guy at the right moment. Just about a day ago, last night, the finale, the last 3 episodes of ANDOR premiered, and it is... I am not alone in saying it is some of the best television in recent years, it is some of the best drama, it is some of the best Star Wars, full stop, ever made. I'm confident in saying that. And the architect behind it is, of course, Tony Gilroy. You know him from his Academy Award-nominated work, Michael Clayton, his screenwriting work, Dolores Claiborne, Devil's Advocate, the Bourne movies. This guy knows how to do it, and it is all evidence on screen in ANDOR. Let's celebrate him and the show tonight. Please give a warm welcome to Tony Gilroy, everybody. There he is.
There are people here. There are people here. Hello. Oh my God. There are people here.
Of course they're here. You've made like the most celebrated show on television right now. Of course they're here, Tony.
Okay.
Okay.
Hey,
Don't act
I'm
humble.
getting with that idea. Yep.
Are you more excited today about the reception to ANDOR or the fact that the Knicks are 1 game away from advancing?
My logic tonight is that no matter what, there's another Knick game.
Right.
You know, if I go home and they won, then like, wow, all right, so I'm good. I'm good no matter what. Let's go ANDOR all the way.
All right. Going to celebrate ANDOR tonight, and there's a lot to celebrate. Look, you've gotten some great reviews throughout your career, and but this one, this is next level. The way this has really united both fans of Star Wars, who are tough, and the folks that aren't necessarily Star Wars fans are appreciating this show. You've somehow hit that kind of nexus. Was that part of the goal of ANDOR from the start?
Well, we've been working really hard the last 5-6 weeks. We've been really junketing hard, and like everyone's got a red dress on, and we're out doing the Willy Loman everywhere. Because the first audience we have, like if you're interested in Star Wars, you're probably really there already.
Right.
Like they were almost there before, and now the audience that we're really chasing is the Star Wars averse.
Yeah.
You know, the Star Wars resistant, the people who my friends, you know, who I run into on the street, who are like,
Right.
oh wow, you know, Clayton was on, or
Right.
Bourne was on. Man, what have you been doing? You know, where you been?
You mean the last decade of my life?
Yeah, like 6 years. Well, I've been like, you know, oh no, but it's Star Wars, and so that's the audience we're really chasing. I hope that some people here, you know, we're really after it. The show was built by people who, the show was designed for that. It was designed, you didn't have to know anything about Star Wars at all to sit down and make a meal out of it. And it was built by people, half the people were nerds, and the other half of the people had to be convinced to come on the show for the same reason.
It is fascinating because, like, look, I'm sure a lot of people here did grow up on Star Wars. It's in our DNA. And I think there's like this preconceived notion that like, what is Star Wars? And like for like growing up, you're like, well, Star Wars is the Skywalkers. Star Wars is the Force. And that's not this show, and yet it is Star Wars. I don't know, for you, having come out the other side of this long journey, can you define what is Star Wars? What makes something fit under that umbrella?
I don't want to repeat myself, but if you think about it, the easiest way to think about it is like the Vatican. Right. Like Lucasfilm is the Vatican, and there's like a Curia, and there's people that, you know, and there are, I don't know all the levels. There's 8, 10 levels of canonical material, all the way down to like obscure fan fiction or whatever. And there's, you know, and there's a guy, there's Pablo Hidalgo, who's the guy, who's been there, the librarian of this thing for a very long time. And and I knew him from Rogue. My experience on Rogue is very different than this. But I called Pablo and I go, okay, like fess up. The galaxy, all these beings, how many of these beings in the 5 years that I get, how many of them have ever heard of the Force? Well, like nobody. How many have ever seen a lightsaber? Nobody. How many have heard of these 4 people you keep making the movies about? Nobody. So I was like, okay, well, that's a pretty wide field. And that's the Star Wars reality.
Right.
You know? And so if you made a show about the United Kingdom and you only saw The Crown,
Sure.
You'd be like, whoa, I don't know. That's enough, right?
Right.
So that was It's a really wide playing field. It's not what people think, so.
It's fascinating too because you've kind of like Trojan horsed your revolutionary novel into Star Wars, essentially. Like this story has the bells and whistles of, yes, aliens and Star Wars accoutrements, but underneath it all are other passions that have been important to you, needless to say, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, was there a non-ANDOR, was there a non-Star Wars take on these themes and stories that you were thinking of tackling? Like, is there a non-Star Wars version of this story that you were going to tackle?
That's an interesting question. I never played with an idea that went at this stuff. You know, history and revolutions and Oliver Cromwell and the French Revolution and, you know, the show trials. And I mean, I can go, you know, an amateur historian. But I never fantasized that I was going to have an opportunity to work on that. But Trojan Horse is only, like, it makes Disney look like a dupe. And it's not,
They knew what they were getting into.
No, they came and said, hey, here's these 5 years, and this is the show, and they knew that my concept for the show, they tried the show different ways before. They tried to make it a, you know, Butch and Sundance, Cassian and the Robot go and save the Tesseract or whatever, and they were smart. It was smart shit, but it was like, wow, what do you do on, like, you're gonna run out of story nutrients very quickly. So I kept saying, if I was going to do it, or what you should do, because I wasn't trying to get the job, what you should like take the guy back to when he was a roach, the worst night of his life, and see if you can, 5 years, if you can get him to be the guy in the other movie and that trip. And that 5 years is, of the calendar in Star Wars lore is just super potent. It's this epic rise of fascism and authoritarianism and takeover, and it's a whole bunch of people oppressed, backed into a corner, having to react. And it's literally history coming and kicking down the door of all the people that are there. I'm like, okay, well, that's you want me to do, like, in the end, 1,500 pages on that? It's revolution. Yeah, definitely do that. And so it wasn't entirely duplicitous.
You've obviously worked with IP before.
That's why I did the job, though. That's why I did the show. To do that.
To do that, yes.
Yeah.
Working with IP is not something new for you, obviously. But I mean, this is a bit of it. Well, I mean, you know, you're thinking of Robert Ludlum books that are beloved to a degree. I mean,
not when we started, though. They were out of print.
Dolores Claiborne.
Dolores Claiborne, yes, you're right. You're absolutely right. IP, you're right.
So is there, because I think I've heard you talk a little bit about, like, your secret weapon in a way, and you've kind of just referenced this on Rogue even, was you weren't deferential to the Vatican, as it were. You kind of came at it as a writer first and less as a worshiper at the altar of all things Star Wars.
Yes, I have fed my family through disrespect of IP.
Your words, not mine, but but I am kind of.
No, it's true.
Yeah.
Dolores Claiborne, super, like, Stephen King likes that movie, and, like, that movie, if you read the book, it's extremely different, except the character that Kathy Bates plays, Dolores Claiborne, is identical to the book. She's like, it's so true to who she is. It's just everything else is different.
Got it.
So it's, like, really true in a way. Bourne, the books were out of print. Rogue, it was like, there's a corpse on the table. What are you going to do? You know, could someone revive the? You know, can you get life support? Could someone come in and save it? It doesn't help to be a fan at that point. Right. It helps to be a cardiothoracic, you know, whatever. You know?
Clear? Yeah.
No, like paddle, right? No, like that. Like, it doesn't help you to be
precious
into
about it. Yeah.
Not being into it helps you do it.
I mean, I know you're not going to say anything about this, but I'm just going to do my duty to ask this question, because I've asked Gareth about this. I've talked to Chris Weitz. You all clam up when Rogue One comes up. Yeah. Is there, like, a blood pact on, like, we're never going to talk about what happened on Rogue?
I have fed my family by not talking about Rogue.
Okay, for the record, I'm just curious.
I got one more to go. One more. My wife is out there somewhere. I don't know.
All right, so you get in, Kathy gives you this extraordinary opportunity, and you run with it.
Right.
Season 1 is fantastic, and you have this very ambitious plan. We're going to do 5 years, 5 seasons.
Right. Well, that's what we said in the beginning.
Right. That was said to everybody out loud, and that was your intent. You kind of have a creative breakdown at some point.
Yeah, I'm not, like, I don't want to appear too slick or like together because I took this job. You could not be, and I'm like, it's not like I have my eyes closed to the business or to other people that have done shows. My blindness and naivete and ignorance about what I was getting into was stunning, really stunning. And I thought I could direct the first 3 episodes, and we had a writer's room for a week, and they were getting the scripts in, and absent COVID, there's no show. COVID, like, put the brakes on everything and reset everything, and let me learn a way to run the show remotely in a way that really was incredibly effective for the system that we developed to make it. COVID saved the show, so I wasn't really prescient about what I was getting into at all. I was really stupid.
So
I really regretted it. I was hoping COVID would take the show away.
So what's the turn? When do you just hit upon this new story structure of when you're talking to Diego?
They kept saying, okay, you don't have to direct. Okay, you can stay there. Oh, I was like, I'm not going to England and die for the show, because that was COVID. It was deep COVID. And UK was, I don't know who followed the UK COVID, crazier than here in some ways. Man, super aggressive. They wanted to go. And an amazing producer, Zana Wallenberg, who produced Chernobyl. And she's been my sister all the way through this. She's literally the mother of the show in many ways. And she's just gonna go. And Disney was the first up, and they started testing, and there was kind of shamed into continuing, right? And I was rewriting everything. I rewrote my scripts first. They weren't good enough. I started rewriting everything else that came in. We started hiring directors, and around, I don't know, late winter, I was able to get out of quarantine in London and go up to Scotland where we were shooting. By that point, the work that was required to make the show, at its minimum, was just, bedazzlingly blinding to look at. It's really epic amount of work and a number of people and money and just time. And Diego Luna, who's been my partner on this all the way through, we were we went to a backyard in a little hotel in Scotland, and it was like, oh my God, we told him we would do 5 years. That's 60 episodes. You literally physically could, if we're gonna do it like this, you couldn't physically do it. His face will be like, de-aging you can do a lot, but you can't do, and it was impossible. And what are we gonna do? And we came up with a plan to do the second season, to do the 4 years of the second season in 1 season. And that led to a whole series of interesting decisions that ended up, it wasn't being so smart, it was being lucky. It was like this shit just presented itself in front of you, and like, oh my God, we have 4 blocks and there's 4 years, and what happened if you came back for 3 days? And that couldn't work, but it does. And it was a very fortuitous, experimental, exciting, storytelling, dramatist thing.
I've alluded to this already, like the fact that it's such a sprawling work that, ironically, despite the fact that it's called ANDOR, this is like a gigantic ensemble. There are so many speaking parts, so many significant...
400 speaking parts in 2 seasons.
It doesn't get bigger than that.
No, it's stupid. It's
such a thin line between genius and stupidity, though.
Oh my God, no, it's... No.
But look, there are episodes where Cassian is barely in it or not in it at all. And talk to me a little bit about fleshing out this ginormous ensemble and filling in all the blanks and making it something that's, I don't know, that makes us fall in love with everyone from Kleya to Luthen to Dick. It's crazy.
I've been overpopulating scripts for a while, and I've been accused of that before. That you always turn a script in and they go to budget and they go, wow, do you realize how many, So I'm the day player's friend, and I like to tell stories. I don't know, I really use it that way, and I don't know. Anyway, but this was an extreme case of that. But I guess in the same way that I said that the version that Disney was originally thinking about doing, which was,
The two-hander or something.
yeah, the two-hander saving the Tesseract was so limited, it was just seemed so claustrophobic. I think I'm so, through experience, so nervous about not having something super exciting to turn the page to. I was like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna populate this thing, and there's always going to be someplace interesting to go, and all these people are going to inform each other about each other. And I've learned over the last millennium of doing this that I've learned how to get people in the same room together. It's hard work, that, and like people watch Bourne movies. What's the hardest thing in the Bourne movies? A speech or some bravura thing. It's not. It's like orchestrating literally so people can talk to each other. Right. And I'm like, if I can get all these different people and get them together, and then Nina Gold, who you've seen millions of, she did Game of Thrones, she's done every major show, casting agent in London. She's just a wonderful person, and Martin Ware, who's her partner, and I was, she was gifted to us, and she really dug what we were doing, and we started. And
can you speak to a little bit of the casting, actually, because there are some amazing casting discoveries. Like I watch a lot, and yes, there are some very recognizable faces in here. Some actors you've inherited from
right,
et cetera.
A couple, yeah, mostly are, yeah.
But I'm saying is mostly, yes, they are new, and they're not giant name actors. No. Was that a conscious decision?
There's just so many great actors over there. Another American showrunner, remain nameless, said to me on the way over, he goes, man, you're going to be a pig in shit. He goes, you're going to go to Nina, and you're going to see these actors. He goes, and all these Brits won't hire them because they were on EastEnders for 8 years, or they did a Cadbury spokesperson, or or Coronation Street, and they're like, they're so snobby and awful over there. He goes, these people are going to come in, you're going to see them, they're really great actors, they're fantastic people, you're going to have no filter, you're not going to have any bias, and that's our show. And I think a lot of people have been shown up in the UK by the people that we cast and said, hey, maybe you should, a lot. And it was a pleasure for Nina, I think, who had a lot of people in her back pocket. And a lot of people you see on Thrones or Slow Horses. You'll see a lot of same. The shows are all cross-pollinating now. But man, they have a deep talent pool over there.
Yeah. Some of the amazing acting talent here. Stellan Skarsgård, we know. But the actor you found for Kleya, this relationship, which we didn't really, if you've seen the entire series, you know how resonant this relationship is and how important this character turns out to be to the Star Wars story.
Last night, her shit dropped, yeah.
The backstory.
Anybody who's into that, you're on the ground floor of an actor investment. You see an actor early. I would really, if I was buying stock, I would buy Elizabeth Doolittle. Yeah.
So that relationship and that unexpected kind of origin story, for lack of a better term, that we see in the flashback.
Last night, yeah.
Was that seeded right from the beginning? Tell me how that evolved, who they are to each other in your mind.
When Stellan came on the show in the very beginning, when we were going to do 5, I guess, at some point, he was like, they want me to make this, these contracts are so prohibitive. And he says, you got to promise to kill, I'll come on, but you got to promise to kill me in 2 years. So I'm like, well, yeah, all right, give me 2 years, and if you want to stick around, I'll do it. If not, I have the pen. And then it was like, and we tried to come up with some. He's not really a backstory guy. He's not a needy kind of actor. But I came up with some elaborate backstory or a couple different versions. And he was like, And we both agreed that they sank under their own weight and they weren't worth it. And he goes, look, let's table this. And I don't want my backstory to be revenge. And as long as it's not revenge, I'm into it. And then we shot as we're shooting the first season, there's a scene that we shot probably about halfway through our shooting when Faye Marseille shows up at the gallery, and she's flush from running this heist, and she's not supposed to be there, and she confronts, and these two women do not like each other. There's territorial battle over who's really dominant with him. And Faye Marseille says to him, I gave him Aldani. What have you done for him lately? And she says, I don't do lately. I do always. And we were like, oh, look at her. And like the way, she just rose all the way through. And so then you get to the second season, you're like, okay, well, we have to explain their backstory. And then the decision train becomes inevitable, and where it falls becomes inevitable. And yeah.
Dedra and Syril, greatest love story of all time. Beautiful.
Wow, greatest love story of all time. I don't know, man.
That says more about me than you.
Turn out the lights, right? Wow. That's like, wow, man.
I mean, that's another case where, again, actors I wasn't familiar with, they have such interesting, unusual vibes with each other, solo. Talk to me how that relationship evolved by seeing what they did.
Syril was an early, like I had that, I use navigational scenes, like I write a scene, I plot through a lot of dialogue, so I sketch scenes, and sometimes I don't even know where they're gonna go. The scene where his first scene where he is where he's called in by his superior, he's investigated this double murder, and he's changed his uniform, and his manager is just this amazing, another British actor, who just is like, could not be more exhausted with this, ferret of an employee. And so he was my Javert, I'm like, oh, here's a guy who's gonna be obsessed with my hero all the way through. So he stood up right away. And I can't remember exactly where she came from, but she rose early. As I plotted them together, Kyle came in an audition, and literally when pre-COVID, literally in the audition, I'm like, okay. I said to Nina, like, okay, let's have that. That's the guy. And Denise, my wife, and I had gone to see People, Places, Things in London early, the show that she did that won the Olivier. We saw it on Rogue really early, 10 years ago. And we went to dinner afterwards, and we're like, oh my God, that woman has to do that 8 other times this week. It was just crazy how amazing she was. So when Nina brought her in, I didn't even really have to, I don't think she read. I was like, okay, she's a freak. And yeah.
And in concert with the two of them.
She was really edgy during the season about not having a romance. Okay. I do not want my character to be just submerged into a romance. What happens is I get a romance, and then the whole thing will be a love story. And I'm like, well, I don't know. Well, we'll see. Okay. Now they're really into it. Okay. Oh my God! You see them on they're together on a. They're two very unusual people as well. So. They're very amusing.
Late in the season, she describes her character. She says, "I'm a scavenger." Maybe it's just because I saw Michael Clayton like the night before, but I think of I'm a janitor. Is there a connection? They're self-identifying what their function in the universe.
No, that's just me becoming a more declarative writer.
Fair enough. Fair enough. The gift of inheriting an actor, Mothma, Genevieve, is amazing in this.
Genevieve, yeah.
Genevieve, sorry.
Yeah. Genevieve O'Reilly.
Genevieve O'Reilly.
Yeah.
Again, that's someone you inherit. You don't even know what
I have no choice in that. No, I worked with her maybe one day on Rogue, so I met her once, and you have to have her. So it's like, all right, well, I don't know, okay.
I mean, there's so much, a lot has been made about her speech to the Senate, which is just remarkable. Yeah. Again, are you writing to the strengths of your actor by then?
Yeah, I don't know who she is when we start, and Zana says, she's a lot better than people think, and what could we do with her, and you're kind of road testing people, and I'm having lots of conversations, even in both iterations of pre-COVID, post-COVID, whatever. I'm very curious about what she can do. How far can you go with her? And oh my God, you're like plunking on the keys, and you're like, and you peel the tape off. It's, oh my God, it's a freaking Steinway, I mean, she's like, holy cow. And she's been this unutilized actor. Again, so many people in the show have been underutilized for so long in the UK. Shitty cop shows, and, and like, oh, got to go to a series in, Canada to pay my rent and whatever. And like, she was just, wow. And then, it's really beautiful. you start to write for the person, and they keep elevating, and as they elevate, then you realize you could do more. And like, I would contend that her performance in the show is the most elaborate and complicated, and her character has the most tortured experience in the show because everything that she does is observed.
Right.
Everybody else can go out and she has a cousin in the show who Faye Marseille plays, and her cousin is sort of like a rich girl who joined the Bader Meinhof or something like that. And like her sister's off like shooting guns and active, but they do connect. And Genevieve said to me one day, she goes, I'm so jealous of Faye. She goes out and gets to jump off dams and stuff. I go, that's exactly what's happening for Mon. She's trapped. Everybody's watching what she's doing. And Genevieve, I don't know if she learned on the show or she came, but there are so many places in the show. I don't know if we have I don't know what clips we're showing, but like where this mask will come. You'll watch her just arm up without doing anything, and the escalation of that and the importance of it as the show goes on becomes. She's just, man. I think her performance is central. As central as Diego's to the show.
We talked about how the early ideas from Kathy's group was about this kind of two-hander. You do bring in K2, obviously, as the show progresses towards the end. And it's such a perverse, amazing origin story. It's pretty remarkable. Was that something, I know there was an alternate idea that you had.
There was a whole bunch of, and you talk about canon. I mean, canon doesn't, I usually try to deal with it, and I'm really sympathetic and into it. I was annoyed to find out that somebody had, in the interim between Rogue and that, had written an origin story for K2, and it's like, no, I'm not paying attention to that. We're not doing that. But what was my point that was so...
How did you land on the origins of K2 in
my brother got burned. My brother was one of the writers on the show. Bo Willimon and Dan Gilroy and Tom Bissell came in to help me out and do episodes on the show and sort of do the collaboration on a lot of the building. And there was an episode that was a whole self-contained episode about K2 and that. And Danny wrote this elaborate horror movie episode that we had to scrap for money. But I can't remember. I wanted to stall the K2 thing as long as possible and I really knew it would be great if we waited. I think Alan Tudyk got impatient. It was hard to wait, and everybody got impatient waiting. But my experience on Rogue was that he was a very difficult character to take around, to do plot with. He's very hard. You couldn't do anything with him. You can't go anywhere. You can't hide or anything. But when he comes, you want him to be strong. So we did it that way.
It must be an important decision to make when you do, in this show, reference the Force. You do have the May the Force be with you towards the end of the show. And
at the very end, he says that, yeah.
Right. So is that like a?
But I have Force in the show. I put a Force healer in.
Yes.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about the.
It wasn't in my original plan.
Yeah.
But I felt like if I could get it in, it would be abusive to not have it, to not touch on it if I could. Like to the real people who really care, like. If I could get it in, I would. There's an early scene in the first two episodes where Cassian has to, he's stealing a test ship, and he's supposed to deliver to another pilot, and he lands on this planet, and there's these idiot rebels there that are in a mutiny that's kind of like to show you in a microcosm what's going to happen later on, the funny, crappy version. And at the end of that, too, when he escapes, when he pulls away, you realize, oh my God, he was in Yavin, which is this, epic Star Wars where it's the base, the rebel base. And it's the beginning of the rebel base. It was like, wow, so he's kind of a little Zelig-y. He's kind of at all these places when all these epic things, he's at Aldhani, and he's here, and he survives this and that and the other thing. There is some element of destiny that I shouldn't ignore. And reluctant destiny is really cool. I mean, there's a really major religion that's based on it. And Diego's really good at looking like Star Wars Jesus. And it's like but how to do it so it's not cheesy, and how to do it so you're not
mission accomplished, not cheap.
Yeah, no, and like,
Yeah.
and so tiptoed into a place, you know, a character of what's the hook on that scene? If you watch that scene, what lets me in? What lets me in is when she says thank you to him. She senses him across the place, and she's kind of a faker in a way, and people come to be healed, but she doesn't really feel it anymore. She can't do anything. And here's this guy across the thing who doesn't want to even talk to her, and she can feel something across the thing, and she doesn't even know what it is, and then she does this thing, and she's like, thank you, like restored this feeling in me. So it's really kind of, it's oblique, and it freaks him out, and it confirms something for Adria, for Bix, and so that was sophisticated and subtle enough to meet my threshold of not being cheesy.
Right.
And then it works. Then it's like then it has value.
Is there? Look, I mean, this show as a whole, this large ensemble, these are the forgotten heroes of the revolution.
Yeah. The gravel. We say the gravel that the road to the revolution is built on. Yeah.
So you can kill them off or not kill them off. You have license. You can leave them, and you do. You leave many alive. Yeah. So did any make it that weren't intended to make it, or vice versa, that you went back and forth on who's going to make it to the end?
No, not really. I tell you how people run different shows, and boy, greatest show ever, Sopranos, right? And I mean, seriously, no complaints about The Sopranos, but did you watch the documentary about The Sopranos?
I haven't watched it yet.
It's really cool. It's weird, and like actors would show up for table reads to find out if they lived or died.
Right.
Which is like, that's the antithetical, like, I talk to people 6 months beforehand, like, you know, like, get ready and make your car payments because you're out. You know? It's like, no, but I'm like,
right.
Oh my God. No, so I had a pretty, it's an open communicative process, and you don't want to kill people gratuitously or anything. I don't know. It had a rationale to it.
How much of the ending? We obviously knew this was going to lead directly into Rogue One,
right.
So you had some shots, some ideas of how this was going to end, but you do end. And I apologize if some haven't watched the entire thing, so I'm going to try not to get specifics. Well, it ends with a series of there are 5 women that you kind of talk about their fates at the end. Was that something that was? How did you arrive at how to kind of sum up?
I think of all the things in the show, if my brother Johnny and I, he's not just the editor, he's the post, he's the master builder of post. I think if you showed Johnny and I that last montage, that last sequence, like 3 or 4 years ago while we were doing season 1, we would have go, yeah, that's where we're going to end up. Like, nothing else of season 2. We probably could have shown us all kinds of things, and we would have been, really? Wow, you're going to do that? But like the last thing, we knew where we were. And I think Diego started saying this first a while ago, and I think it's really true. I think the ability to make the show, the reason that it exists is all because we knew what the ending was. And we really, there's relief in that, there's objective in that, there's, you can marshal your energy because you know how far you have to go to get there, and you know you can sprint at the end if you have to. There's so many things that does that help you. And you see so many shows where people start with something really great, a great idea, really cool, really hip, and like they get going and they get traction and they're like, whoa, what do we do? And like sometimes it really works out, sure, and they really figure it out. But it's tough to make it. You know, you're swimming, you're out at sea. We were never at sea. We always knew where we were going, so you couldn't get too far lost.
Putting my Star Wars fanboy hat on for a second, you do reference Tarkin and Palpatine in the show.
Talk about them.
Yeah, ever a discussion of actually showing either of them?
Well, I was part of the Tarkin project on Rogue, so no. No. And Palpatine, you know, what are you gonna do? Show somebody in one as a, what's he gonna say and come back, and what's he gonna do? Right. And no.
Right. You have sadly said your time with Star Wars is done, at least for now.
Yeah, in 10 years. Wow, give me a break.
We're greedy.
Right? Yeah.
You made some of the best Star Wars ever. And you found it's a sandbox where you were able to pour all of your ideas into. Why not do more? You could pour more ideas into it.
I don't know. I mean, don't never say never. But you know, 24 hours and 2 hours of Rogue, that's 26 hours. That's
a lot.
I'm leaving the campsite cleaner than I found it, I think.
If you were teaching, yes. For the next showrunner, writer, whatever of a Star Wars project, you're teaching the Star Wars Writing for Dummies course.
No.
What's lesson one? What do you say?
I don't think people should. I'm not into people. I hate being a benchmark or like an example. I like I've watched a couple episodes of the Skeleton Crew. I actually think it's like, if I had a kid, I would watch that show with my kid. It's kind of like, I think they should just do, I don't know, man. Don't try to do this. Don't do this at home, right? No.
Can I ask you just a couple questions about your background? Because your resume is so storied and there's so many amazing successes that I would be remiss if I didn't mention a couple of them. Your dad was a noted playwright, a very successful writer, and yet you were a late bloomer when it came to writing. You were a reluctant writer, is that fair to say?
Yeah. I came late, yeah. I never cashed a check until I was, I don't know, 35, 32? 32? Yeah, something. I was in my 30s when the first time I quit tending. 30. At 30, I stopped tending bar. I have a child, and I get my first check from Canon Films. Yes.
Canon Films, no less.
Menahem Goldman.
Yes, there's a good
That's
documentary
how old
on that
I am.
stuff. Yeah, amazing. Were you on set for the early gigs that you, as a writer, like, were you on set for Cutting Edge or Dolores or any of those? Because sometimes
Well, really
writers
different. And really one of the reasons that that things worked out for me is that Cutting Edge, I had the traditional writer's experience where I went up to Toronto on my first movie, and very exciting. I go because the director was all into having table reads and rehearsals and all the monkey business that goes with like pretending that you're like doing something, you know, all that stuff. And I walked in the office and I was like, oh my God, here's this production office, all these people work here. And the line producer was a really old school line producer, and they brought me into him, and he said, welcome. He goes, I'm going to try to get rid of you as soon as I can. I go, what? He goes, I hate having the writer on the set. That was my introduction. And literally. And I was like, okay. And then when I, later on, Taylor Hackford, who made Dolores Claiborne, was the absolute opposite of that in every way. And Taylor just put his arms around me, and from the very first moment of pre-production all the way through the final publicity campaign of 3 movies, Dolores Claiborne, and
Devil's Advocate.
Devil's Advocate and Proof of Life.
Right.
I mean, for 10 years of my life, I had access to everything. Every actor, sometimes more than I wanted. I won't go into that, but like.
Well, I was going to ask you about Devil's Advocate because there's some amazing speeches in there that Pacino delivers. The absentee landlord speech. I mean,
Yeah.
Are you responsible for that? And did you work with?
Yeah, man. I mean, that's, oh my God. Yeah, no, Taylor threw me with Al for, I spent a lot of time with Al on that. There's a lot more speeches that aren't even in the movie, yeah. That was an extravaganza.
We could probably spend at least 2 hours talking Bourne
We will
movies.
not do that.
But
yeah, speeches.
speeches.
Big monologues. Yeah.
Big monologues. I was going to say the Bourne movies, though, in and of itself, we could do a master class on how to, those are chaotic movies, how they're made. Doug Liman, a beautiful, chaotic filmmaker, Greengrass's handheld verite style, and everything about, if you read about the production, there's a lot of stories around that. I don't know, is it a miracle to you that those films came out as well as they did?
I'm going to say what I always say. It is the most shambolic, fucked up success ever. It just kept rolling. Everybody didn't like each other and different things. It was just a mess, and it just kept working out.
And you just went along?
I went along as far as I could, and then I tried, seriously, I tried in Legacy to give them a Marvel universe. I really did.
Right.
I think if, you know, it's a much maligned movie, and because Matt Damon's not in it, but he was never supposed to be in it. But like, that movie was, if you think about it from the point of view I'm saying, I was really trying to give them a Marvel universe, access to all areas, and blood was so bad that even that didn't. So.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked to Renner about this. He was amped.
Oh, Jeremy and I are good.
But he wanted to mix it up with Matt on the crossover film. That was
oh
that
my
was the
God,
plan.
no, I don't want to get into that. But like, it's just all you have to know is that some things can succeed in spite of themselves, and it's also because Matt Damon is just like the greatest actor ever, right? I will say that. And the basic, right, isn't he? And he really is, man. He's amazing. And the story of someone who's continually throwing a gun away to try to, you know, who's an assassin is really compelling. Another reluctant savior.
Yeah. I'm sure. I hope you're okay talking about Michael Clayton. You should be, because it is a great film that has stood the test of time. And I mean, as celebrated as it was, and it was celebrated. You were nominated twice for writing and directing. Its stature only grows. It has become.
Last couple of years, it has some traction. Yeah, I don't know why, but yeah, the last couple of years there was a whole.
Did you feel like you were in conversation with the Lumet films, with The Verdict? Was that on your mind when you were constructing that? Because it feels like it's a lost film from that era.
I just went to TCM and introduced some movies, and the one movie I had to do was Klute. You know, Klute. We showed Klute. You know, Klute was like that's our look, and yeah, no, it was made by people who were obsessed with 70s Pakula movies, yeah.
Denzel has said it's the one movie he regrets turning down, Denzel Washington.
I know.
Have you ever?
No, I've read that, no.
You've never
He did a movie with my brother where he plays a lawyer a few years later, though, didn't he?
He did.
Come and J. Israel.
That's right.
Like, is he doing this because he like, no, he did. No, he didn't want to work with a first-time director.
Right. Well, you got the right actor at the right time.
He didn't want to work with George turned me down before I went to Denzel. George turned me down 2 years earlier because he didn't want to work with a first-time director.
Crazy. Okay. So, is that your voice in the cab at the end, by the way? The amazing.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah. Where are we going? What are we doing?
You guys remember the end of Michael Clayton? That long credit sequence where he's just in the cab? Yeah. Amazing. Amazing. Yeah. All right, let's talk about some audience questions. Let's do this. We want to know, was there ever a version of the story where Cassian finds his sister?
A lot of people ask that question, and I think that probably I thought about it in the beginning for a hot minute, but it became very clear to me that the absence of his sister was far more valuable than her presence. There's a line where he goes through the whole movie, you know, trying to he leaves his mother and he doesn't come back in time, and like not getting there in time and not helping people. Yeah. And at the very end, there's a really cool line, very well delivered by Faye Marsay, who plays Val, and Mon Mothma comes to her at the very end and goes, God, I've come to ask you if he's telling the truth, and he went and saved Kleya and against orders, and he got in all this trouble, and she goes, you know, he should just stop saving people. She's being ironic, and like, that's worth more to me than a coincidental cheesy scene where he happens to run into his sister or something. So she became more valuable, and everybody has things that are unresolved is good. Yeah.
Somehow he's already a tragic figure in Star Wars canon. You've somehow made him that much more tragic given the ending of Bix.
Diego never wanted me to find. Diego never came and said, "Hey, where's my sister?" No. No, but I mean, like, he never asked for it.
I've heard you said that. Do you have a special fondness for Syril of all the characters? Do you have some kind of connection, some kind of empathy for?
Above everyone else?
Yeah.
Well, maybe. In a way, I've been unleashed in the last 2 weeks to use the word fascism. I had media training before that.
We're getting the good version of Tony.
I can use that word. And, you know, all right, I'll go for it. What does fascism do? It doesn't just destroy the people it comes for first, and the communities and the organizations and the law and the truth and the rest of it. inevitably, in every model of fascism that there's been, it ultimately comes and destroys its early proponents and its foot soldiers and its underclass, and it destroys its, because it's all centralized power, it eventually eats its young. And I'm not consciously starting off saying, oh, I want to write a show where that does that.
Right.
I'm not doing that. But the result is, I mean, Dedra's a true believer. She grew up in an imperial kinderblock. She's a zealot. Whatever chaos is inside her is very contained. But Syril is a romantic character, maybe the most romantic character in the show. And there's a scene early on in the first season, if you ever watch it, where he's back in his mother's that apartment, that box he lives in with her, and he's in his childhood room, and he's at his window in the morning, sitting on the side of his bed, and you know, there's a thing where like there's 30 seconds of sunlight comes through his room, and he's waiting for that, like he's waited his whole life, and on his desk are his little action figures, and like, that guy could go, his fantasies could be anything, and he buys into this fascist imperial mindset and constructs everything. The whole cathedral he builds inside himself is all about that, and Dedra and everything else. And then when that comes crashing down, that's really sad to me. And I think, I mean, I don't know. I don't want to say that I pick him to identify more than anybody else, but maybe you get some idea of how, like, if you're writing well, you feel that way about all of them, right?
Right.
I could make that speech about a lot of people
Right.
in the show. I hope. Yeah.
And I've heard you talk about this. I mean, a lot of folks want to kind of draw parallels between the world we live in now and this
Yeah.
show. You're not the type of writer to look at the news and then say, how do I pour that into these characters? That's
Not
just
tonight.
But these still a little media.
That guy.
Still a little media training left.
Get him out of here.
But these stories are cyclical. These themes
It's
were
sad
wrestling.
but true. Yes. Yeah.
You are not returning to Star Wars, but you are working on a film. You have a script that you want to make. I understand that, right?
Yeah. Very happily, over the summer I wrote a movie, so I don't have like the burden of like, oh, I'm done. What am I going to do? No, I wrote a movie over the summer, so I got the monkey off my back. I don't have to worry that I'm frozen.
And this is, without saying too much, movie music world. Oscar Isaac is attached.
No. It's about movie music. Yeah, it's about a cellist who comes back to LA as part of a session family, and after 20 years returns to LA to cut sessions for movies again.
And Oscar is potentially your guy?
Yeah, no, Oscar's been standing by me as we try to get money for the last 6 months. We've been struggling.
He was almost your Aaron Cross, as I recall. He ended up in the film, but not, he auditioned, right?
He came in and gave an audition for us when he was nobody. He was absolutely nobody. And he came in and gave an audition for the legacy part that was, Frank Marshall and Kathy Kennedy and I sat in my hotel room in LA and watched like 40 times at night trying to figure out how we would convince Universal to do something. No, I mean, it couldn't work out. He was nobody. But he's a great actor, isn't he?
So you tried to sell them on it, but he didn't have the stature. There was at least a conversation.
You couldn't really go, you couldn't make demands and stuff because it was pretty obscure ask. He really was nobody. He just out of Juilliard. But wow, talk how auditions shake you up, and that happens, people shake you up in an audition. Wow.
Best unproduced script in your drawer that you've never had a chance to make? Is there one that's...
Couple. I think the best stuff I ever wrote is in there. Really, honest to God. Yeah, no, I think the best scripts have not been made. I think that's true for most writers, yeah.
And that's just because it's not the right genre at the right time? 1,000 reasons.
As lucky as I am tonight,
Yeah.
I had some bad luck. Seriously, man, a lot of bad, no kidding, really, that's what it is. It's bad luck. You kind of picture there's like an Aztec stone wheel in Hollywood of availability and moment. No, and when some calendar and think of all the great movies that didn't happen because the right person wasn't available for the part at the right moment, or the movies that did happen because the person was right. And you see something that you love with the right person, and the thing comes together. It's a miracle, kind of. But you can't, but a lot of times you have your hand slammed in the door. It's just, it's a grinder's job. You got to grind for a long time to sit here tonight. You got to grind.
So you're going to watch Star Wars as a fan going forward. What do you hope and expect to see?
No, I mean, they have some kinky projects that they're trying, and
Really?
Yeah, no, like 25,000 years BC.
Right, the Mongol
Star
one.
Wars
Yeah,
and
yeah.
a horror movie and some other stuff, and why
Are you secret trusted advisor? Are you going to weigh in when Kathy calls over a little?
I do that for everybody. I do it for a lot of. I have a community of, I have an elder screenwriter community of people that I ask for advice, that ask me for. Yeah, people will call you. There's people I'll read for, and people that I'll ask to read for me. Yeah, I think that's a community service that people give each other.
William Goldman.
Which is how I got in this job.
I was going to say Goldman was kind of a family
Oh my
friend.
God, he's
Sure.
the ultimate. He was the one who taught us how to do all this. He was the guy who basically, spread it around. He was the great.
Right.
At his funeral, Scott Frank and I did the eulogies at his funeral, and Scott gave this amazing, the amazing Scott Frank gave this incredible eulogy for Bill, and everybody had a different task at the funeral, and Scott's tranche was how Bill gave back and what a mentor he was. And this big room is in what used to be the Ziegfeld Theater, and he said, okay, everybody in the room who Bill read your script and took you to lunch or called you up and read your shit and stand up, and oh my God, there were 40 people stood up in the room, and it was you could have built a movie studio for decades off the 40 people that stood up. It was like, wow. Yeah, so
it's important for you to pay that forward?
I feel like it's, I'm second generation with all that stuff, so I probably feel more tradition bound but I really value all that. It holds great value for me, that traditional shit. No, it really does.
Yeah.
It does,
Keep doing the traditional shit, passing it on, making the good work. This is a huge accomplishment, man.
Thank you.
It's not just me. This entire audience, we all love what you do and what you've contributed to Star Wars and to just great drama. ANDOR Season 2, it's out there. You guys know it. Spread the good word and give it up one more time for the great.
Wow, thank you. Thank you.
And so ends another edition of Happy, Sad, Confused. Remember to review, rate, and subscribe to this show on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm a big podcast person. I'm Daisy Ridley, and I definitely wasn't pressured to do this by Josh.